Hello, everyone. So, got a new story today. It says school guidance counselor accused of having inappropriate actions with a 7th grade student. These female teachers are out of control nowadays. Anyways, let's get to the story.
A guidance counselor is now accused of sexually abusing and performing lap dances on a 13-year-old boy behind closed doors.
She went Magic Mike on the kid. Wow.
She faces serious criminal charges. How was this alleged abuse discovered, and where could this case go from here? We break that all down with former sex crimes prosecutor Kathleen Bogenschutz. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I think it was last week when I said, I'm sure we haven't heard the last of educators accused of sexual misconduct. No. And sometimes, she had also worked at the Nathan Hale Middle School in Norwalk. The married mother of 3 has been arrested for second-degree sexual assault and 2 counts of
second degree. Is it because she's not male and she can't do the penetrate? Because I think in some cases, for it to reach the statute of sexual assault, it can only really apply to male, because we do the penetrating. I don't know.
Risk of injury to a minor. In my understanding, these are very serious felonies that can carry potentially years in prison. She has resigned from that school district. It's also been reported that her husband has filed for divorce and is now seeking custody of their children, and one of them reportedly is just 2 years younger than the alleged victim in this case. So, how did this all come about? How was this brought to the surface? Well, according to the Norwalk Police Department, they opened this investigation in April, and that is when they received a complaint. And the reporting indicates that the defendant had given her phone to a friend, a fellow teacher, because apparently his phone wasn't working. And that's when he allegedly found all of these sexually explicit text messages with
Why did he go through her text messages?
this boy. So the friend reportedly then tells police. Investigators reportedly speak with the boy, who allegedly confirmed that this guidance counselor had in fact sent him nude photos, and even says she paid for his Uber rides and food for him, even gave him $100 over the
Well, obviously, the kid's 13. He doesn't have any money. How's he going to get to her if she doesn't
Christmas
pay?
holiday. According to Melchionne's attorney, she has posted a $500,000 bond. She was released from jail. Reporting indicates she's on house arrest. She can't have any unsupervised contact with minors except her 3 younger children. And for this, I want to bring on right now criminal defense attorney and former sex crimes and child abuse prosecutor Kathleen Bogenschutz. Kathleen, thank you so much for coming on. Where does this rank? Of course, where does this rank in terms of the cases that you have seen? And by that, I mean, I know it seems like every week I'm talking about another case that may be worse than the next, but this one is, again,
Got the crazy eyes.
another instance of not only alleged abuse, but blatant abuse in the open, right?
Right. And some of the information that we have is that she was even perpetrating on this child while she was in her office. And I can't imagine that guidance counselors' offices have locks on the door, although in the age of school shootings, maybe. But certainly some of these other guidance counselors, people with their offices around, should have known or should have been logging the fact that he was spending an inordinate amount of time in her office, one would assume.
Well, and apparently she had closed the blinds, made sure the door was closed.
Light some candles. You know what I mean? Turns the lights down.
Which just makes this even more sinister and creepy. But
that doesn't make it more sinister and creepy. The creepy part is her doing that to a minor. That's it. The rest of it is just standard.
That might also be why it was hard for people to know what was going on, right?
Right. And of course, she made the consummate or the error that most people committing these kinds of offenses make, and that is by using their phone. because no matter what you delete, it can generally be retrieved, or at least something can be retrieved. And the fact that this other teacher found these things and reported it, kudos to him.
Right.
I'll also note that it appeared, and I'm going to couch it that way, on one of the articles I read, that her husband had filed for divorce before this other teacher went through the phone, that the investigation started.
Oh, so either the husband found out about it prior and he just thought it was with an adult or something. He just kind of suspected she was cheating. Or the marriage was on the rocks and it might have been the reason why she engaged in those kinds of activities.
In April, and the husband had filed for divorce in February, and the child had switched to a different middle school in February.
Yeah, let me work on the timing.
That's my question.
Well, let me work on the timing. So apparently this allegedly happened, over a period of time, this abuse happening on school grounds in her office. And this abuse began in the spring of 2023, ended in February 2024 when the boy transferred schools. And the boy apparently told police that this abuse would, as I said, happen behind closed doors, the blinds would be lowered. Are you surprised, A, that this happened over such a long period of time, and B, it took this long for the school and authorities to find out what was going on?
I'm not surprised. You would be shocked at what people don't know goes on under their own roofs at home.
Yeah, because people usually mind their own business.
It can be very difficult to meet with the parents of a victim who are beside themselves because they knew nothing. And kids are good at hiding things, and perpetrators are good at hiding things. And generally speaking, if you're going to perpetrate on a child, you need a couple of different things to intersect. You need to have the opportunity, meaning you need access to the child. And of course, being a guidance counselor, that was built in for her. And you need the means. You need the ability to keep that child separate from others. You don't generally commit these crimes in front of other people. So it's not super shocking to me that something like that would have been able to keep a secret for that long. I am surprised that, and I would have to see like a floor plan of the school or something like that. I'm surprised that somebody else didn't, have some spidey sense about this. This kid is spending too much time in this office. They're closing the windows, the door is closed, the lights are off, weird stuff like that.
No, I would say if it was just a regular teacher, maybe, but a guidance counselor, I think they kind of get to have a little bit of private time with the kid. They could say the kid is nervous or is reporting something to her or something like that. So it would be less suspicious if a guidance counselor was doing that.
There wasn't a secretary or somebody like that kind of logged. That's weird.
Hey, everybody, I just want to take a quick second to thank back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code SIDEBAR for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. I know I say this a lot, but in your profession, in your experience, it's not unusual to have someone who's married with children, has a life, to be engaging or allegedly engaging in this kind of conduct, right?
Unfortunately, you would think that being a mother or being married would insulate people from this, but it tends not to. I would also note that there's quite frequently, at least in my state, and I practice in Florida, there are enhancements. So it's always bad to perpetrate on a 13-year-old if you're 40.
Yeah, I would think her having kids of a similar age, she would at least, even if she has those desires, she would at least have the empathy to think, what if someone would do that to my kids and, just not engage? But mental health is a thing, man. And especially with the whole, mental health industry just kind of getting a little bit wokeified, and now everyone's feelings are valid. And they just don't. Therapy nowadays is more about listening than diagnosing and trying to fix a situation. So she could have been going through a lot of stuff, and she might have showed signs that she's going through some stuff mentally. that was just not really engaged in the right way, or possibly she could lose her job just talking about it. And she made a poor judgment call, trying to escape her mental situation. And it's just terrible, man.
But if you're in a position of authority over that child, it enhances how serious the offense is. And I'm sure that's something that the prosecutor in this case is looking at.
Yeah, no, I think I was just covering a case out in New Jersey last week where there was a crime of sexual assault because of that position of power. And in that state, that's what it's classified as, that relationship. When investigators speak with this victim, this boy, what is that conversation like? How challenging is it to extract that information from someone that young?
So it's always difficult. What I often used to go talk to some of the police officers, especially the ones that were right out of the academy. And I used to tell them that if they thought something had happened with a child, to somehow get a female in there, even if you have male children. And whether it's just the fact that we tend to spend most of our time with our mothers growing up, or that there's something like a little bit less intimidating about telling a female. Generally,
no, it's because females tend to be less threatening. And they have a lot more experience with talking around a subject, whereas a direct question would tend to make the child a little bit more likely to clam up or feel like the situation is a little bit more tense. So that's usually what the reason is.
Generally speaking, you will have a forensic interviewer who's a female with a child. I've seen some good male interviewers, but I'm just speaking in generalities. The other thing is that it's so difficult to get boys to disclose these things in comparison to girls. I think that it is extremely underreported when it comes to boys, and
not just boys, men too.
When you think about like an older woman perpetrating on a younger boy, I mean, it might take him years to figure out, my God, I was a major victim in this. My God, she took so many things away from me. And right now it might be something that he doesn't even want to participate in. So it can be very, very difficult with, and I've had a couple of serious cases where it's been an older female perpetrating on a younger male. Very difficult to get them to the point where they would want to testify in court, even with the protections that are often afforded victims of sex crimes in court, where you can close the courtroom. You can, if there's any sort of media there, you can not show their face. You can do all kinds of things to try to protect their identity. But you also don't want to be the guy or the girl as a prosecutor who's forcing a victim to do something against their will when they've already been forced to do something against their will. So it's a very fine line there. And
this is incredibly traumatic and damaging, no matter who the victim is. And particularly at that young age, it's, our hearts go out to them because you don't know what effect this is going to have on their life. And it's just not fair. It's not fair that they were exposed to this and had to become a victim, because again, it's an unthinkable situation. You go in for a guidance counselor, 47 years old, that's what the allegation is. Generally speaking, and I know every case is different, there's different motivations for why someone would engage in this.
I think it's particularly traumatic, considering, God, like a woman of that age. Like, imagine because she was sending photos to the kid. Like, imagine the kind of like images he had to see. Like, that's got to affect his dating life and his, experiences with women going forward. It could either be something that, hey, maybe he doesn't want to talk about it because he thinks it's a good thing and he's positive and his friends are giving him kudos for it and all this stuff. And he thinks it's great and he wants to engage in that more. And now he's in a situation where he's on a track to engage in a very, very adult situation that could sort of dominate and ruin his life. Or it could be something that scares him away from that activity altogether, and it just messes with his relationship with women going forward. And it just there's no real positive outcome from the situation.
Conduct or alleged conduct. What are some of the reasons you've seen that people in this position of authority and educators do this?
So are you asking me what my opinion is, or the stories they have told themselves?
Stories they've told, or rationale they put forward.
Right. I mean, it's like you could even go back to the Mary Kay Letourneau. We're in love. This is my soulmate. This 13-year-old boy is my soulmate. I've never known love like this, despite being married with children. It could be that there's a mental health issue that maybe has not been addressed. For example, bipolar disorder, which is overrepresented among all criminal defendants, and even more represented on sex crimes defendants. That in a manic state, you can be overly, you can seek out inappropriate sexual contact while in that manic state. Of course, it's always against the law to perpetrate on a child and to do things against someone's will. But I have seen that as when somebody gets on medication, they somehow even out and can't believe what they've done, even though they have a memory of it.
By the way, prosecutors have said they've notified the Connecticut Department of Children and Families about these charges, this investigation. In cases like this, is it likely she will lose custody of her children? I mean, what happens, by the way, if the charges are dropped, or what happens if she's acquitted? How does this affect her custody with her husband or ex-husband?
So criminal court, different than family court, different than what might be dependency court. Family court would be where the divorce and child custody proceedings are happening. I would expect that there would be some kind of either a dependency action or some kind of a CPIS investigation into this family as well, just because of the nature of these allegations and the fact that there are these 3 minor children in her home. So those are both civil proceedings with lower standards of proof than beyond the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, which is what you would see in a criminal case. So I would also venture that the state or the prosecutors have looked at the evidence in this case, and they have decided what they could prove if they didn't want to put the victim on the stand. Because some of those texting things, you could have his parents authenticate the cell number. You could use you could do latitude and longitude as to where and when these things were sent. You could try to do things that would not put the kid on the stand or make him testify, but would still achieve what you want to achieve, which is potentially a prison sentence and maybe a designation as a sexual offender or predator.
And let's expand upon that a little bit. First, I'll ask you about the defense here, because these are very, very serious allegations, but they are allegations. And her attorney, Mark Sherman, released the following statement, quote, "Luisa is still very much entitled to the presumption of innocence. These are just accusations. What we do know is that these charges are being brought against a devoted wife and mother who has dedicated over 20 years to her profession, and it's going to take some time to investigate this case." What do you make of that kind of statement, and what are potential defenses for her here?
I don't think that statement really proves anything. You're like, well, these charges are brought against this person. It don't matter if it was brought against the president, man. It's still pretty serious.
I don't know if I would have made that statement myself if I were defending her. She is entitled to the presumption of innocence. That part is fine. But who knows? Usually when something like this comes out, other people come out of the woodwork. It's generally not just one, or there may be somebody else she did something inappropriate with, but it's not quite chargeable. And in quite often in sex offense cases, you will see things like, it's called Williams Rule in Florida. It's similar fact evidence, particularly when it comes to sex crimes. People have certain predilections indicating that this may not have been the first time. Now, we have no evidence of that here today. I'm just saying that she had so much access to so many children for so many years that there are going to be, unfortunately, a lot of parents having some very serious discussions with their sons and daughters.
You talked about how this could shake up. Would you see a plea deal in this case? And obviously, there would be an advantage to having a plea deal, so you don't have to take this to trial, so you don't have to expose this victim. Whenever this trial happens, they'd still be trying to recount what happened to them as a young child, having to take the stand. But at the same time, if you're putting a plea deal on the table, I would imagine she would be pleading guilty not to the maximum here. So what would a deal look like here?
So I don't know what the maximums are on these charges. If she were charged in Florida, she would be charged with first-degree felonies, just based on her position of authority in the crimes committed. So in my state, she'd be looking at 30 years as a maximum sentence. I would expect that there would be some kind of either jail or prison time. It depends on what mitigating factors are presented. Like I said, I've seen some very good mitigation with bipolar disorder, not to the extent.
She looks completely different in those two photos that they show of her. The one where she has darker hair, or at home. I don't know why her face is blurred in that photo, but then the mugshot photo, wide eyes, just crazy looking, does not look like the same woman.
Extent that you would completely forgive the offense, but that I've seen plenty of hearings for mitigation regarding people who are acting out sexually, and once they get on the correct medication for them, they are absolutely horrified at what they've done. So it would really depend on that factor as well. I could see a prison or jail sentence with sex offender probation afterward requiring a psychosexual evaluation, all recommended follow-up, a lengthy term of probation where she's not alone with any minors. They did make the
just completely different person.
Exception for her younger children. But that being said, I mean, she could be on probation for 15 years when she has grandchildren, even.
Right.
So it really, I'm very sorry for her family as well.
Yeah,
for this and for her own children.
There's suffering in this as well. That can't be ignored. That can't be understated. And I do want to close this out by asking about the school and the school district's responsibility here, because Norwalk Public Schools, they released a statement saying the safety of our students is our first concern, and how she's no longer employed by Norwalk Public Schools, and that Norwalk Public Schools is cooperating with the police and department's investigation. They also said they have no further comment. And according to News 12 Connecticut, she was fired 6 weeks after the school district was first told about this investigation. And I have to ask, if that's true, is that too long? Do they face?
No, like what could they have done? When they get the accusation, they have no way of knowing whether or not it's true, so they can't immediately start firing people, because then that opens them up to liabilities. And beforehand, how would they be able to prevent this without actually knowing that something like this would happen? They can only react to these situations. They can't really preempt it.
Face any liability here in terms of hiring her, keeping her employed? Because again, it's a fair question to ask when you think about what the allegations are here.
Yeah, it is absolutely a fair question. I do note that they didn't say she was still at the school during those 6 weeks. She could have been suspended with pay, without pay, while they did an internal investigation and tried to satisfy whatever collective bargaining agreement she had in the teachers union, so that they weren't illegally firing her without any kind of explanation. That's what I would expect the 6 weeks were. But if they had left her in a classroom, the liability blinds me.
Yeah, that is, that's crazy to think about. And we'll see. Just a really, I don't even know. It seems like every time I cover these cases, it's shocking me, but it's also not shocking me what's happening across this country, unfortunately. I don't know what's going on. Debate about whether it's getting worse or it's just being amplified and more reported, but whatever it is, it's really, really sick stuff. Kathleen Bogenschutz.
I think it's a combination.
You think it's a combination of what's going on?
It's
well, the more it comes out, the more people are doing it. You're just like, okay, another one. And there's sort of a pattern. It seems to be a lot of married women. A lot of married women, teachers are doing it. And it seems to be a lot of mental health involved. Some of it is drugs. But there's really no way to really prevent it, because these people have to be in those positions. Like, you can't eliminate the positions or eliminate the possibility of a sick individual getting into those positions. So you can only react after the fact, and there's no way for you to really do a deep dive enough to know what kind of signs to look out for until situations start happening. So, yeah, it's a crazy situation that I guess we all just kind of have to get used to. It's just going to be a lot of female teachers. I mean, there was a point, and this is the reason that there's not as many male teachers as there used to be. There was a point where every time this would happen and a male teacher would be involved, people start side-eyeing other male teachers. What are they going to do now? Are the female teachers going to get the same sort of side-eye that the male teachers used to get, and the terrible reputation that came along with that, where now male teachers are afraid to even be alone with a student, much less, you know what I mean, talk to them about anything. I don't know if they're going to extend that sort of treatment to the women now. But yeah, it's kind of getting out of hand. And it seems to be that more of these stories come out, more of them keep coming out. It's not like any of them that are doing it or will do it are getting scared. They just seem so very blatant and confident about what they're doing. Anyways, until next time.